This is what transpired in Doha, and it's a first for tennis, to be honest. The first-round match between Alexandra Eala, who is far outside of the top 100 rankings, and Aryna Sabalenka of the Czech Republic packed the Khalifa International Stadium. We're talking about a complete sellout. Every seat is occupied. Allow me to explain this to you. While Eala was causing total mayhem with 7,000 shrieking fans, Grand Slam winners were essentially playing to half-empty arenas. The event directors said, "You know what, after looking at their entire list of superstars and former world number ones, this 20-year-old Filipino is our major draw." That decision completely wrecked the way tennis scheduling works. Scalpers started to appear after the tickets for the Tuesday afternoon match were dumped in a matter of minutes, causing chaos. Security had to ask for assistance since the crowds outside the player entrance were becoming unruly. In a sport where early rounds usually end in intermittent applause and phone checks, it was like seeing a different planet come to life. As though preparing for combat, the Filipino community in Qatar organized. Social media became popular. Local groups started to take action. Fan groups were established. This was not a corporate marketing campaign or paid advertising to boost ticket sales. People's pure passion was displayed by those who had been waiting their whole lives for someone to represent them on this stage. Imagine the contrast happening simultaneously throughout the room. The top-ranked Aryna Sabalenka, which has won multiple competitions, was around 30 to 40% full. Components of IGA early on, Swiatek's games were empty. These players should theoretically win every tournament in which they compete. Instead, this young player, who has never even won a WTA title, is the center of attention while they are struggling for little attention. That must be mentally exhausting if you're one of those established champions. Something happens after dominating Roland Garros, winning Wimbledon, and reaching the top of the sport. A player outside of the top 100 generates more electricity in one afternoon than you do over the entire season. The psychological effects of that reality are awful. This is what Eala found that no one else has. Tennis success now depends on more than just backhands and serve speeds. It's about advocating for something bigger than individual achievement. These Filipino fans weren't only cheering for clean winners or technical prowess. On a global platform that has historically been dominated by American and European faces, they were pleased to see themselves represented. This incredible mental challenge evolved from the actual game. Instead of getting polite tennis applause on every point, picture being hit by a deafening boom. You could be completely overwhelmed or uplifted by that kind of energy. Eala had to deal with 7,000 people calling her name, but she didn't let it push her too far. Valentova had an edge as well. She has good ground strokes and a potent serve. She had also defeated Eala in their previous meeting. Eala had statistically struggled against that kind of play, and the Czech player had a better head-to-head record. On paper, Valentova should have had no trouble with this. Instead, Eala showed the depth of her intellectual growth. 2 years ago, that tension might have completely wrecked her. This time, she took advantage of the crowd's enthusiasm. Her Rafa Nadal Academy defense skills were put to use. She started extending rallies, making Valentova hit more balls until the Czech player became impatient. One of the points from the second set immediately went viral. When Eala was pushed so wide on her backhand side, she was practically in the doubles alley. Running across the hard court, she was able to flick this passing shot down the line and catch the corner with grace. The noise that followed was so strong that seismographs in the area captured it. It's not exaggerated. The noise was actually measuring on scientific equipment. After winning, Eala took the microphone and started speaking to the crowd in Tagalog. The place became utterly crazy. She thanked the foreign employees for making her feel at home and congratulated them for using their hard-earned money to buy tickets. This led to the development of an emotional connection that extended beyond the actual tennis match. Sabalenka is probably sitting in her hotel room in the interim, wondering how she got passed over in a tournament when she was the overwhelming favorite to win. She has reached the top of the rankings, achieved everything the sport has to offer, and won multiple Grand Slam championships. However, the organizer used all of their marketing resources to help someone who has never won a WTA event. The tournament directors, however, made the right business choice. Eala is a ticket seller in Qatar. At least not to the same degree as Sabalenka. There is a sizable and fervent Filipino expat community. There aren't enough members of other groups to create that atmosphere, or they don't arrive with the same zeal. This indicates that the WTA's athlete marketing plan has a serious blind hole. Grand Slam totals and rankings have always dictated the tour's promotional focus. However, those traditional metrics completely ignore demographic support and cultural links. Despite having a lower ranking than Sabalenka in Qatar, Eala is significantly more valuable from a business perspective. By looking at these numbers, tournament organizers around the world are realizing that their scheduling strategy has been incorrect. In an effort to boost attendance, top seeds have been automatically assigned to prime-time positions. But what if those spots went to the athlete with the most loyal fan base, regardless of where they were ranked? This also emphasizes the vast untapped potential of the Southeast Asian market. With differing degrees of success, the WTA has been wooing China for years. But one market that is driven only by emotional investment is the Philippines. Eala is the key to realizing that promise. If she continues in this route, we may witness more events targeted towards Southeast Asia, or at the very least, recognition that she has become an important worldwide marketing asset. For viewers from other continents, this can seem like a one-time novelty or cultural oddity. But in reality, it's exposing a significant shift in tennis's demographics. Celebrities from Europe and America have controlled the infrastructure, media attention, and sponsorship money for many years. Everything is. Her matches now need to be carefully planned by the tournament organizers. She is in charge of the schedule rather than the schedule dictating her whereabouts. Textbooks define star power in this way. But there is real danger here as well. It takes a great deal of emotional energy to fight a struggle like this. Young players often win these strong emotional battles in front of home-like crowds, only to fall terribly in the next round. The adrenaline hangover is evident. Eala's team needs to supervise her recovery, help her get some sleep, and focus her energies on the next opponent. The event's winner is not decided in the first round. No matter how fantastic the audience support was, she still needs to execute tennis principles against opponents who are becoming more difficult. As the week progresses, maintaining that competitive advantage while managing expectations becomes the real challenge. Those images of empty seats at other featured matches in contrast to the crowded Eala session will form people's memories of the entire event. Who ultimately takes home the trophy is irrelevant. Alexandra Eala became the main character in the Qatar Open story as soon as the first applause started to fill the arena. She added passion, enthusiasm, and color to what was starting to appear like just another forgettable early-season event. Sabalenka and the other top seeds need to process this psychological reality. They are currently superior players based on performance and consistency, but they can't easily mimic Eala's atmosphere. They are compelled to confront an unpleasant reality, which is a psychological blow that takes time to heal. Just because you are the most successful doesn't mean you are the most important or captivating athlete. Excellence and relevance are not always the same thing. Tennis officials ought to take note of what the Filipino supporters showed. Because of their passionate, deeply engaged fan bases, professional sports endure and thrive. If no one is encouraged to participate, the sport will eventually die, even if you have the greatest athletes in history. Eala possesses a trait that higher instruction cannot impart or improve. She has an innate worldwide fan base that follows her around because Filipinos can be found in practically every major city on Earth. That is a competitive advantage that has nothing to do with strategy or making shots. It is cultural as well as demographic. It's also helping players like Sabalenka, who have dominated via pure tennis talent, realize that modern star power requires more than just winning matches. You have to advocate for something that more truly connects to people. Alexandra Eala recently sold out a stadium during a first-round match, while Grand Slam winners played to scattered spectators. She was selected by the Qatar Open organizers as their primary draw over top players and past winners. And the ecology and economic success that resulted from that decision were unmatched. Rankings are no longer a factor in determining star power in tennis. It has to do with establishing relationships. Eala is a master at it. And something crucial had already become apparent when the stadium's lights gradually lowered and the commotion in Doha finally subsided. It was never simply another tennis match in the first round. The entire tennis world was reminded that the sport is evolving in ways no one fully anticipated, and what transpired that night at the Qatar Open felt more like a turning point. Professional tennis has followed a straightforward pattern for many years. The players with the highest rankings get the largest courts. Grand Slam winners are the subject of the largest advertising campaigns. The agenda is centered around well-known performers who have demonstrated their abilities on the largest platforms. And that system has generally been successful. However, Doha demonstrated to us that the script can be abruptly changed. Because thousands of fans failed to show up for rankings that evening. They failed to show up for statistics or awards. They arrived to establish a connection. They attended out of pride. And they were present for Alex Eala. Take a time to consider the contrast. Champions like Aryna Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek, who have already mastered the sport, continue to rule the standings because of their extraordinary skill and reliability. Their status in tennis history is assured, and their accomplishments are indisputable. However, what transpired in Doha exposed a more profound aspect of the contemporary sports environment. Greatness is not defined in today's world. It is also determined by a player's level of interpersonal connection. 4 million of admirers worldwide, particularly in the Filipino community, who have long yearned to witness one of their own ascend on the global tennis scene, Alex Eala is a strong symbol. This goes beyond simply watching a game for them. It's about seeing their identity, culture, and stories represented on a worldwide scale. And something remarkable happens when that emotional bond combines with the intensity of live athletics. A first-round match can become a sold-out event in this way. This is how the stadium trembles due to the thousands of spectators. And that's how a young player who isn't in the top 100 all of a sudden becomes the talk of the tournament. However, these kinds of situations also bring with them a different kind of pressure. Because the spotlight is shining brighter than ever when expectations rise so rapidly. Each match gets bigger. Each performance has deeper significance. The world starts to look for evidence as well as possibility. In theory, Alex Eala's current challenge is straightforward, but in practice, it is quite challenging. She needs to use this emotional drive to produce reliable outcomes on the court. Because, despite the intensity created by the audience, tennis ultimately boils down to points, games, and wins. Nevertheless, the events in Doha demonstrated something that the tennis community as a whole can no longer deny. The sport is growing. There are emerging new areas. Heroes that new audiences may support are emerging. And that's when the concept of star power starts to shift. Rankings and history are no longer the only factors influencing it. The people who occupy the stadiums shape it. Therefore, whether Alex Eala can produce